Thank you, Matt, Jake, Audrey, Eddie, for that great worship song, Great Things. So tonight's reflection will focus on following Jesus. What does that mean? And what does it mean to be a mere believer as opposed to a steadfast disciple? By definition, a believer is someone who accepts a particular set of beliefs, often religious ones that focus primarily on believing in a set doctrine or creed. The teachings of that set doctrine. Basically, it's a person who believes in God but doesn't actively practice their faith. A disciple is someone who follows and learns from a teacher or leader, often attempting to put into practice those teachings into their daily life. The focus is on actively following and imitating the teachings and actions of that said leader, with actions such as learning, growing, applying the wisdom that they are learning as a leader into their everyday lifestyles. Basically, a student who diligently studies and practices the techniques taught by their very mentor and puts into practice into their daily life. A believer, therefore, is someone who has faith in Jesus Christ, but a disciple takes it a deeper step, and is a follower of Jesus, but also who actively seeks to learn from and imitate his teachings. While all disciples are believers, not all believers are disciples. Disciples are doers of the word. Jesus calls us to be more than just have a belief in him, but rather to be his follower and imitate his love and education so it reflects in our everyday lives. So that may radiate inwardly and outwardly from within us, for that others can see it and come to believe as well, and who wish to seek Yeshua for all he has to offer and for all the love he has to bestow upon us. For the rewards are many. For example, in my own life, when I first came to St. Francis, I was still very much a believer, a desperate seeker, a very desperate one at that. For I was truly in the throes of much angst, and had much angst due to a failed relationship that I had tried so diligently to make a balanced one. I had lost myself completely in it, completely lost control over it, and felt that though it had ended, it still had a crippling effect on my life. I lived with daily anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, phobia, social isolation. I was desperate to get out of my head and out of my own way and gain the ground on this toxic existence I found myself in. I had always been a believer of Christ, having proudly been raised Christian, but I sadly fell short of being a true disciple. I prayed often, but often too many times it was in the efforts of getting out of a jam. I did confession, but only when I felt that others had been watching or knew about my sins. At best, I could be called a mediocre believer, and I was all too aware of that. So hence my coming here to St. Francis, to begin to find my way. Though I still consider myself a believer, I do feel comfortable enough to today say that I am also moving into becoming a true disciple. I'm moving my way into becoming a true disciple, a work in progress. I see my faith growing and taking my mentorship more seriously, and I also see the rewards that come with obedience, such as feeling the immense love of God bestowed upon me and upon his followers. Disciples of Jesus experience a deep sense of God's love and acceptance. The joy I feel when I feel his presence is more fulfilling than worldly approval. And God's Spirit also guides in so many different ways. It strengthens us disciples. It helps us to be victorious in life on everyday battlefield. No longer having to live in fear or with anxieties, Jesus also promises that his followers will be given the strength to endure trials and persecution on a daily and minute-to-minute basis. Whether it be from enemies that are seen in the physical, or those that are seen in the battle that are seen in the unseen realms, we are gifted the power to overcome these hardships. That is a promise. As disciples, we are given the opportunity to share the good news as well, which builds strong relationships and helps new believers grow in their faith, which gives us meaning and purpose. We can also expect to live in divine health, live in a state of well-being emotionally, physically, and spiritually. The return is 100-fold. Those who forsake all to follow Jesus will be richly blessed in this life, both materially and spiritually.
Amen.
Amen.